What's up everybody, welcome back. So in this video we're going to look at our reload animation. It's a little bit different because we have the arms and the weapon we need to animate, and we also have the constraint between the left hand and the clip to work with. So let's get started right away. So first of all, we're going to go to the animation tab and create a new animation or a new action. So I'm going to select the pose and I'm going to duplicate it and rename this to reload. Make sure we select the little shield button over here, and I'm going to delete the last frame. So A to select everything, select the frame over here and delete it. Now let's go to the layout and let's start making our animation. So back into the pose mode. Let's see. So first of all, I want to move the right hand. And I want to make the gun swing to the right a little bit and then have the clip fly out. So let's go to the move tool and somewhere around frame 7 maybe, and I'll move it up and to the right a little bit, and I'll push it forward, and I'm gonna rotate it. So rotate it down a little bit, inside, and tilt it over, something like this maybe, and I'll insert a keyframe for this. So press I and add a location rotation keyframe, and let's drag it over a little bit more, somewhere around frame 12 maybe, and let's move it again. So I'm gonna go further to the right and up, and I'm gonna swing it the other way, so something like this. Nope. Little bit too much probably, but it'll have to do. It's not too bad actually, so let's move it a little bit more to the side and a little bit more to the right, so something like this. I can live with that. So first let me get the left hand out of the way as well. So I'm gonna select the left hand and I'm just gonna move it down to myself a bit further to the side, so it's out of the screen, and insert a keyframe for that as well. So press I and add a location rotation keyframe. So now we're gonna have to use our imagination a little bit. The clip is going to fly out and it's going to go off screen, and then the other hand is going to grab it and it's going to put it back in. So I want the gun to move back to the left and tilt over so we can slide the clip back in. So I'm gonna go maybe another 7 frames or something, and I'm gonna select the right hand again and move it back inside, rotate it, and move it over, so maybe something like this, and add a keyframe for this as well. Well, this is not going to look great, but as I mentioned before in this tutorial series, a lot of the animation making part is just patience and making things over and over to make everything look good. So don't expect this to be any AAA animation. This is going to look really bad, but just to get the process clear, that's all we're doing in here. So let's see. So we're going to insert the clip somewhere around here. So let's work on the weapon a little bit first. So we're going to go to the object mode, and we need the weapon skeleton. We hit it previously, so press the little eye icon over here to reveal it. Select your weapon armature and then go to the animation tab. Now you'll notice there's no actions here because we have a different armature selected. So we're going to create an action for the weapon. So create a new action, and I'm going to rename this to weapon rifle reload. Make sure we select the little shield icon over here, And we are ready to start animating, so I'm gonna put this at frame 1, press A to select the entire armature and add a keyframe, so I and add location rotation keyframe. Now let's go back to the layout, back into pose mode, and because the other animation is still playing on our character, we can now animate our weapon. So we want the clip to fly out somewhere around here. So I'm gonna select the clip bone and I'm gonna add a keyframe here, location rotation, because it needs to stay in place up till here. And then we're gonna move it over a few frames. So maybe I wanna move this to the left a little bit. So let's say somewhere about here. And I'm gonna move the clip out of the way. Something like this. And add a keyframe for that as well. So it flies out a little bit fast, but you'll get the idea. So we have the clip out of the weapon, and the clip, as a player we can't see the clip anymore now because we're looking somewhere like this. So I'm simply going to move it to the left hand now. And we added a constraint for that. So how are we going to do that? We can make keyframes for the constraint. So if we have this clip bone selected, we can go to the bone constraints over here, and we set the influence to 0 previously, so we want to increase that to 1. But first we need to keyframe it at 0, so it won't slowly go up, but it goes from 0 to 1 in 1 frame. So first let's keyframe it here. We're going to click this little circle button at the back here, and it's going to add a keyframe. Now move it over 1 frame, and I'm going to set the influence to 1, and I'm going to keyframe it again. So now the clip is tied to our hand, and all we need to do is animate the weapon socket left, so the clip is positioned correctly in this hand. So we're gonna go back to the object mode and back to our character armature again, back into that pose mode, and now we can animate the weapon socket. So weapon socket selected. Let's move this in the correct position. So we're at frame 14. I want to go to frame 13 and add a keyframe first. And now we start animating frame 14. So let's move this up a little bit. Oh damn it, that was not what I wanted to do. I pressed the space bar. So I'm going to move it roughly into the correct position in the hand. So I'm not going to bother animating any of the fingers or something like that, because that's just going to take too much time for the sake of this tutorial. So again, this won't look great, but it'll have to do. So something like this maybe. And insert a keyframe. Now as you can see, the slider moved because I accidentally pressed the play button, but I'm gonna keyframe it first. So press I to add the keyframe. And then I'm gonna simply drag this over. So we wanted it at frame 14, so let's put it in here. And now we are good to go, and we can animate the left hand, and the clip will simply follow. So let's move this. So we want to have it start moving at around frame 14. So again, I'm going to keyframe it first so it stays into position. I didn't have anything selected, I think, so location rotation keyframe. And let's move it back into the gun. So let's go to frame 20, somewhere around there maybe. And let's move this back up. So somewhere around here. Tedious work. And the longer you spend, the better it's going to look. But I'm afraid we don't have time for that. So I'm gonna keep it here, insert a keyframe. So now it's gonna put the clip back into the weapon. And all we need to do is disable the constraint again. So let's go back to our object mode and select the weapon armature. Go back into that pose mode and select the clip bone. So we're at frame 21, so let's remember that. I'm gonna copy the first frame and I'm gonna paste it at frame 21. And now I'm gonna go to the object constraint over here and I want to keyframe it again. So I'm gonna say influence 1 at frame 21, and then I'm gonna move it over one frame to the right and I'm gonna keyframe it at influence 0. So now the clip is in the correct position again. So we didn't match it up exactly in the animation, so we have a little bit of popping back into place. That's a little bit of a problem. So we might be able to just remove this animation frame. No, we're not. So we can simply copy the location maybe. So if we have it at the correct position at frame 22, let's see what happens if we copy that to frame 21. That's a little bit better. The position of the constraint is a little bit off now because it's moving inside the hand. But it'll have to do for now. So we have the constraint disabled again and we can go back to our character to finish the animation. So select the armature from your character again, back to the pose mode. And let's have the hand go back into the correct position. So I'm going to select the right hand first and copy the first keyframe and paste it somewhere around here. No, that's not too great. Let's drag it a little bit to the right so we have a bit of room, and I'm gonna add a keyframe in between here. Move the gun up a little bit and rotate it. Let's see how that looks. Well, it's still pretty horrible, but it's a little bit better, so that's fine for now. 30 animations, 30 frames, I'm sorry. So let's get the last hand into place as well. Let's give it a little bit of rotation over here. Oh, that's a little bit too much. And move it out of the way. Oh, that's a bit too much as well, probably. And then at frame 30, I'm gonna simply copy and paste the first keyframe again. So the hand is back in the original position. And that'll have to do for now. So it's far from pretty, but you'll get the idea. You can simply keyframe the constraint influence to manage the position of the clip with the left hand if you would like, and that way you can make a pretty decent looking animation. So how are we going to export this? Well, we're going to go back to the object mode, and first I'm going to export the character animation. So select your character armature. Make sure we're in the correct animation, so we have the rifle reload over here. I'm going to go to File, Export Mr Mannequin FBX. export the action to the correct folder and press OK. Now for the weapon, let's go back to the layout, and I want to select the weapon armature. And this time I'm gonna select the normal FBX export, so export FBX. Now let's make sure we name this properly, so call this weapon rifle reload. And we need to change a few settings over here, so I'm gonna set selected objects and only select the armature. Transform, that's fine, you don't need to change anything in here. Geometry is fine too. For the armature you need to disable add leaf bones. And for the animation part you can leave it as is, that's fine. So I'm gonna export this. And we have our two new animations in here. So we're gonna put them into Unreal Engine. Let's go back to our project over here. So first the character animation, I'm gonna drag it in. And make sure you select the default arms, so SK Mannequin arms. And import the animation. And let's get the rifle animation in as well, so I'm just gonna drag it in the same folder, that's fine for now. And you need to import it onto the assault rifle skeleton. Just make sure if you're using the same weapon pack, there are two of the same skeletons, and you want the one in the weapons folder and not the one in the animation folder. So in this case I need the second one. And let's import the animation. Now if we open the animation, you'll see it's playing way up in the sky and it's moving, and we don't want that. So we're gonna enable the force root lock on the left side over here. And this will lock the gun into the 000 position, and we are good to go using it for our animation. So let's save it. And now we can simply test it in the character blueprint. So go to blueprint, first person character blueprint. And in the event graph, I'm gonna make a little test event. So right click and press type event R. And I'm gonna use the reload or the R key to add a reload event. Could be possible. So keyboard events. The R key. So for the character mesh, I want to play a montage. So I'm gonna play montage. And I'm gonna select a reload montage in a little bit, but we need to create it. And I'm gonna play an animation on the gun, so I'm gonna drag in the gun and say play animation and connect it up to the top execution pin, so it's gonna execute right away and not when the other montage is done. And over here I'm gonna select our rifle reload. Now let's create a montage for our character. So we want to go to the animation folder. We're gonna right click our rifle reload, create animation montage. And let's make sure we open this up and set the correct slot in here. So slot name is going to be arms. Save this, and in your first person character make sure you select it. And we should be good testing this out. So there we have our awesome animation, and let's press the R key. And it's not really working. It's not playing the animation on the weapon, I think, so let me see what went wrong over here. So we're using the first person gun, we're playing the first person rifle reload, and that's not the correct one, so we need to play the weapon reload. So let me just look for reload, weapon rifle reload. That's the one we need, so try this again. And now you can see the clip is moving. So the animation itself, it looks pretty horrible, but you can get the idea and the concept is working, so that's the point. So we have a little reload animation. Let me see, one thing you can do pretty easily is add sounds to this. So if you open your rifle reload animation, and you can add notifies. So for example, if you want a little sound when the clip goes in and out, you can simply right click and say add notify, and you can add a play sound notify over here. If you select it, and at the details at the top right, you can simply enter the sound you want to play at that frame. So that's an easy way to add some sounds to your animation and make it look a little bit better or sound a little bit better, but the overall experience gets better. So we covered our reload animation. Thanks for watching, everybody. In the next video we're gonna cover our blend spaces for moving and looking around. So I hope to see you then. Later. Bye bye.